Welcome to another episode of Insights from the Trenches, a series dedicated to helping ADHD couples thrive by empowering couples with insights from ADHD experts and ADHD peers. I'm Alice, your host. In this episode, I talk with Roger Dewitt, an ADHDer and a seasoned ADHD coach, on all things about ADHD coaches. Roger shares his expert insights on finding the right coach for you, what to expect, and how coaching can transform lives. So grab a cup of coffee and let's thrive together.
All right, Roger, nice to see you again. Can you introduce yourself to the audience, what you do?
Sure. Well, I'm Roger Dewitt. I've been a coach for 23 years. I have a specialty in working with adults who have ADHD. And I am also a senior trainer at the ADHD Coach Academy that trains and mentors other coaches. I have a full practice, and I have at 57 years old in 2019, 2020, I'm very proud of. I got a Master of Applied Positive Psychology degree from the University of Pennsylvania, where I am currently an assistant instructor for Martin Seligman. I say that only to impress you, Alice.
And I am impressed. So it worked. But congratulations.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thanks so much.
So, well, thanks for letting us know and share a little bit about your background. For this particular segment is really to talk about ADHD coaching. Can you share with us the roles and responsibility of an ADHD coach?
Yeah, so ADHD coach is a specialist not only in coaching and understanding how to really help people, how to get the best out of people and how people can flourish, but an ADHD coach also has the added understanding and specific knowledge of the unique brain wiring of the ADHD brain. And so whereas I hate to say generic coach, but a regular life coach may be really, really great as a coach in getting the best out of people, but if they don't understand the ADHD brain wiring, they can make some really, really big mistakes and in some cases do damage. And so an ADHD coach has both the coaching lens and the ADHD lens. So that's kind of the essence of what it is we do. And we work with the person to understand and work with their ADHD rather than against it. So my job is to help transform somebody's relationship with their ADHD and consequently be able to handle their life better. So it really is a much broader view than just how do you fix somebody and get somebody to stop procrastinating or be less overwhelmed or whatever. This is really about transforming their relationship with their ADHD so they live better lives. Because when an ADHDer is working with their ADHD, oh man, it's hard to stop them. They are unstoppable. It's really magnificent to see when somebody's in alignment.
That's great to hear. Can you give me an example of how someone with ADHD that got coaching, how they improve their lives versus someone who hasn't?
Yeah, so part of it is understanding where their attention is going and understanding what it is that their brain needs in a situation. Because very often a person with ADHD, their brain needs something different because it's a stimulus-driven brain. I mean, I could go into hours of description of what's going on there, but the ADHD brain is uniquely wired towards interest. And interest is anything that stimulates their brain, positive or negative. And it's situationally variable. So in areas of high interest, the ADHD traits are low. In areas of low interest, ADHD traits tend to be high. And so part of it, what I do is I think of this one client that I had that came with absolutely no memory of their successes, focused exclusively on what they couldn't do. Really, it broke my heart because this person really wanted to improve, but the way they were trying to do it was all neurotypical. They were not working with their brain at all. Their idea of motivation was, I got to muscle through. Well, and we know those of us who work with ADHD, we know how how limited that works. And he had been trying to write a screenplay for the better part of a decade. And he was really frustrated. He had a wonderful opportunity to write a screenplay and have it produced into a short film. And sure enough, we worked on his magnifying his strengths while minimizing the weaknesses. And he started working with his ADHD. So rather than to thinking, for example, that he had to sit at his computer all day until he had finished writing, he started as something as simple as doing 20-minute sprints of writing rather than having to do it all. And then at one point he would get into that hyper focus, and so he would do it. And I am proud to say, or happy to say, proud of him, but I'm happy to say that he not only finished the screenplay, but he actually did produce it and shot it himself and produced it. And it was just, it's those kinds of things. When somebody understands how their brain works and they start working with it rather than thinking that everybody else has the right answer, it is magnificent to watch.
Great. Thank you for sharing with us on that example.
Sure.
And that's a really good example of showing how ADHD coaching is so different from life coaching, because it's taking that neurotypical mindset versus that neurodivergent mindset of making sure that you focus on the interest area, and then how do you get them motivated to start performing at their optimal level.
Absolutely. And the secret, the dirty little secret of ADHD is that there are profound weaknesses, but there are also profound strengths. And I've heard it said, I wish I could give the attribution that every ADHD weakness is simply a strength in the wrong context. The longer I'm an ADHD coach, the more I believe that is 100% true.
Wherever you got that from, I really do agree with it, is how you look at this and be able to figure that the positive and then be able to act on it. Fantastic. Yeah. Can you share a little bit about how this is different from therapy?
Yeah, so I want to highlight this is very high level, and I'm not speaking about individual therapists, but I'm speaking about therapy in general. Therapy is based on the medical model, and the medical model is remediate and fix what is not well, fix what is broken. And so from that perspective, you can take somebody from -10 to 0, but just because there's an absence of illness or an absence of deficit doesn't mean that the person is in thriving health or flourishing. And so from that perspective, so a therapist is going to come from a diagnostic place. How can I diagnose so we can have interventions, so we can fix or teach skills or whatever it is? And there are skills that need to be taught, no doubt. There are things that awarenesses that need to happen. A coach comes from the other angle. And we as coaches, according to the International Coaches Federation, we believe that our clients are whole, capable, and resourceful. If they are not whole, capable, and resourceful, they need to be with another professional. And so an ADHD coach really sees the clients as capable. If they're not, if they're in the depths of depression, if they are, having panic attacks, there may be things that they need to have remediated and have healed, quote unquote. But an ADHD coach comes from a strengths perspective, at least the kind of ADHD coach that I think works best. And that is, we come from a strengths perspective, and we're always looking for the strengths. We're looking for the successes. We're looking for how the person does what they do. What's the situation and the variables around that then they can generalize to other areas, rather than what some coaches do is they just pepper you with tips, tricks, and, hints and hacks. I'm always very, very wary of anybody who says, hey, I've got a brain hack for you, because that says that they're just peppering with generic strategies. And as I tell my clients when they come, I say, if generic strategies worked, I have a bookcase full of books that have tons of strategies. And you wouldn't be here right now if those worked, because you probably read at least 50 pages of most of them. So there's something different. And that is the difference is we look at things holistically, we look at things from a strengths-based perspective, and we co-create with our clients whatever it is they need to do. There's an old saying, if you've met one person with ADHD, you've met one person with ADHD. So you really have to meet the person as an individual. So I think the biggest thing, medical model, healing what's broken, ADHD coach, strengths-based, looking for how they do what they do so that can generalize. And then develop themselves as well, like into the kind of people that they want to be with passion and purpose and the like.
Got it. So it sounds like they are coming from opposite ends in a sense.
Yeah, I think the perspective is really different. I was asked to give an in-service to a group of social workers, and because they had no understanding of ADHD, and they were really, really frustrated because, the people come in and they're not prepared for their session and they haven't done what they said they were going to do. I said, well, have you met anybody with ADHD? And they were getting frustrated, which is the sad part. When you don't understand the ADHD brain, you get frustrated and you just compound with shame and the lack of self-efficacy that these poor person with ADHD has lived with all their life. And when they come to an ADHD coach who really gets it, they feel understood and heard. And I've had people, after the first 5 minutes of a conversation, they well up with tears and they say, I've never felt so understood. And I've always thought I was broken. And you're putting a language to something that I've always known, but never been able to describe. And that is to say, not every therapist is just fix what's broken. There are coach therapists as well who do both. But it is usually different.
Understood. So let's focus back on ADHD coaching now that we were able to separate the differences between life coaches versus ADHD coaches versus therapy. In a sense, I think this is very important for people to understand the differences. But when we think about ADHD coaching, especially for ADHD couples, they think it's really for the ADHD partner. Is that really true?
No, and part of it is because one of the things that is so important for the person with ADHD is to have a support system around them. And a support system does not equal, I'm doing everything for you. That's not what that is. A support system is helping the person within ADHD understand and begin to speak the same language. Because most people don't understand ADHD. They don't understand situational variability. They don't understand the ADHD brain wiring. And so they attribute the deficits or the problems that come up as a lack of willpower, or they don't care about me, or if they did, they would do things differently. Coaching both individuals, the non-ADHD spouse and the ADHD spouse, part of what you give to the non-ADHD spouse is an understanding of the ADHD so they can read their partner differently. So often they read it as they don't care, I'm not important to them, or whatever it is. They make up the stories because they don't have the information. So you coach the individual with ADHD, and then you teach and coach the partner so everybody's speaking the same language. Because very often the person with ADHD doesn't understand it either. They just do what they do.
No, I totally agree with you, because from personal experience, it really took a long time for me to really figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, I realized it's like we both are speaking different languages, because different language have different meanings, even if you say the same thing. So for English, when you say yes, you really mean it.
Mm-hmm.
The Japanese, when they say yes, they don't really mean it, but it's the same language. I mean,
Yeah.
which is really true. And these are I would say, the subtleties that if the non-ADHD partners get training on, through maybe partnering with an ADHD coach to really understand those intricacy, those minor details, it could make big differences when you are seeing things.
Absolutely.
differently.
Can I give you an example of like a
Yes.
perfect example? So a beautiful example is there are many people with ADHD that are what we call verbal processors. That means they don't really know what they think until they talk out loud. And sometimes that leads to oversharing and over talking. They can seem like they're focused on them, but what they're doing is they're working things out. They just work it out instead of in their head, they work it out verbally. And sometimes those same people have a new idea, a new sparkly idea. And what do? They try it on verbally. And then they'll talk about it and they'll say, oh, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this. I'm going to pick up the ukulele and I'm going to learn the ukulele and it's going to be so great. I'm going to give ukulele concerts and all of that. And then all of a sudden, a week later, they don't do it anymore. The partner might think, oh, see, they just can't follow through on anything because they don't understand the person isn't not following through. They're not making a commitment. They're trying it on verbally. So you could work with the other partner to say, okay, hey, are you trying that on or are you making a commitment? And then the partner can go, oh, you're right. I'm actually trying that on. So I don't know yet if I'm making a commitment, but it certainly feels fun and interesting. Let me get back to you on that. It's those kinds of things that if you don't understand it, it really messes with the relationship. The same true at work too.
Yeah, I completely agree with you because in my own experience, in my own example is I love to tell my husband, what do you think about going to this place for vacation? And he absolutely hates it because he thinks that he has to go through the motion that we are actually going versus me just trying to say it as something that was like food for thought. So as an example, I said, let's go to, I don't know, Antarctica for vacation. And then someone really had to taught me and say, hey, did you ever thought about telling him that you're not really going to do it? It's an idea that you want to play around with, kind of in the reverse example of you trying it out verbally from a non-ADHD partner, but it got him all flustered. So when I started thinking of going on vacation in these different places, I would have to tell him, hey, this is just all brainstorming, not really going to happen. And it calms him down. So he actually brainstormed with me of what we are going to do versus getting all too overwhelmed with, oh my God, I have to do X, Y, and Z in order to do this vacation.
Perfect example. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Both partners can actually benefit from ADHD coaching.
Yes.
So let's talk about when should someone consider ADHD coaching?
As soon as they suspect they may have a diagnosis. And the interesting thing too, I want to say is that ADHD coaching works for everybody because we know all the ADHD traits live in the general population. The reverse, regular coaching doesn't always work for people with ADHD. If there's something that is causing them pain and strife about their life, I think that is a great time to do it. If there's strife in a marriage, that's the great time to do it. If they're not moving as fast as they would like to, or they're not achieving what they want to achieve, and if they start recognizing that in certain situations they have really, really hard time with focus, follow through, attention, motivation, things, overwhelm, things like that, procrastination. Those are all great times. And that's usually how people show up. People come to me wanting something in their life to be different, wanting them. And because there's more information out there, they're using fancy words like, well, I need some executive function training or some of these things. And I always smile because I know that's what they think they need. But what they really need, they know a lot about ADHD perhaps, but they don't know a lot about their ADHD. And until you start helping and picking apart their ADHD and helping them remember their successes and learning about their strengths and their character strengths and what they do well and how they do it, until they start doing that, then, as I said, all the strategies in the world aren't going to help because this is about transforming their relationship. So they work with it.
Good to know. So let's talk a little bit about when a couple is considering ADHD coaching?
Mhm.
And if they are really looking for a coach, what are the key criteria that they should consider?
Obviously, the more experience the coach has, the better. I think training becomes incredibly important, and not just like I understand the brain biology of ADHD, but they have specific coach training in ADHD. Because remember, the ADHD coach is also a wonderful coach and can be a generic coach, but has the ADHD training that is coach specific. And so I think having really good coach training that is coach ADHD training that is coach specific is really good. I'm a big believer in certification. Having a certification from a reputable coach body that I think is really, really important. So that's what I would say those things. Yeah, and rapport. I mean, they need to find somebody that they like and that they trust. The danger is, and I'm nothing against this, but sometimes people maybe raised an ADHD child and thinks, oh, I know what I did with my kid, so I know how to be an ADHD coach. That's not always, the two aren't equal. You have to understand coaching.
Got it. So you talked about certifications a
Mhm.
little bit. Can you share maybe a couple of certifications that people should be looking out for when
Yeah.
they're looking for an ADHD coach?
Speaking from the life coaching venue, the International Coaches Federation certifies life coaches and business coaches. And it's based on 3 different levels: associate certified coach, professional certified coach, and master certified coach. And they do not have any kind of test or specialty around ADHD. So if you want a good general coach, I think an ICF certification is important. Personally, I think every ADHD coach should have that certification and the certification of the body of the Professional Association for ADHD Coaches, paccoaches.org, PAAC coaches.org. And they specifically certify ADHD coaches. They also
Mm.
accredit coach training schools. So I would recommend that your coach has a training from one of the accredited coaching schools from PAC, and is also PAC certified. They have a PAC credential. The whole reason that PAC exists is to protect people with ADHD from coaches who might unwittingly not understand and do damage. So we are very specific. At PAC, we look for great coaches, and also with a strong emphasis on the ADHD lens and on ADHD understanding.
Got it. Now, I did notice, because we ourselves as an ADHD couples did look for coaches ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that there are actually 2 ADHD coaching organizations. The
Mm-hmm.
one you talked about, the Professional Association of ADHD Coaches, and then there is another one called ACO, which is the ADHD Coaches Organization.
Mm-hmm.
What are the differences between the 2?
So one is a certifying body and one is a membership body. So the certifying body is PAC. So not everybody at the ACO has a PAC certification. We're working on that though at PAC. I'm on the board, so I'm biased, but we're working on that. The ACO does have standards. If you are an ADHD coach and you meet certain criteria, or an executive function coach, or a student coach, or there's a whole wide body of people that will go into the ACO. They have a level you have to prove in order to be one of their preferred members. You have to prove that you've had training and that you have done a certain number of hours. And that is fantastic. I love the ACO. I am a member. They do fantastic work, and they are a great way to find a good coach. You have to do a little more sifting because not all of them have as much training. And PAC is has a rigorous standard that they hold their certified coaches to. And they have 3 different levels as well. They have certified ADHD coach professional, CACP. They have the professional ADHD coach practitioner, and then they have the MCAC, Master Certified ADHD Coach.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that with us. Definitely we now understand as you're going through looking for certification, what is really the difference between the PAC and ACO.
And both are great places to look for coaches.
Fantastic. And then I do see that a lot of times where there are some coaches that offer group coaching, and then there are definitely coaches that offer individual coaching. When would someone consider doing individual ADHD coaching versus group ADHD coaching, and why?
Yeah, so they're both really beneficial depending on the situation. And some of it might be financial consideration. You know, if you are doing a group, you get less one-on-one attention. The price is usually significantly lower than individual coaching. And one of the advantages of group coaching is that while you're not directly being coached necessarily at all times, the people around you are. And so you learn vicariously through that kind of coaching contagion where, you know, somebody else is being coached and you get benefit from it. Individual coaching is all you all the time. It's you one-on-one with a coach. That is more expensive. You get more tailored, targeted, personalized work for you individually. But some people prefer one-on-one and can afford it. Some people prefer group coaching because they have other people around. So it really is a matter of preference, timing, and finances.
Got it. Good to know. What type of advice do you offer to, I would say, each partner, to the ADHD and the non-ADHD partners during their ADHD coach search, besides the certification and the fit and their experience?
Yeah, so I think looking for a great coach together, recognizing the need for understanding and the ability to manage both people. For the partners, first and foremost, for the ADHD person, start cultivating self-compassion, because you're going to be learning a whole lot of new stuff about how you do what you do. And at some point, almost everybody says, God, if only I'd known back then what I know now. Approaching that with great compassion. For the non-ADHD partner, I would encourage curiosity and compassion. Compassion for the other ADHD individual, because let's face it, they would if they could. I think that's a mantra to live by for the non-ADHD partner. They would if they could. So let's be curious and find out what's actually getting in the way, what's happening, so that we can start communicating and bringing both of them being willing to learn a new language of strengths, not just fixing weaknesses.
How long should an individual or a couple should realistically expect that the time commitment they need when they're working with an ADHD coach?
So I like to say that my crystal ball is broken, so I can't tell you how long it's going to take. And part of that is because that when you're talking about learning a new way of doing and being things, there's a body of knowledge to understand about you, about what you need. It takes time. And true change takes time. So I ask people to make a commitment of at least 6 months up front. Ultimately, let's say the person who's coming to me is 40 years old. They've been doing the ADHD the way they've done it for 40 years. So it's going to take a little time to do it and learn to do a different way. So I think 6 months is a minimum. That's my personal opinion. And that is the minimum that I ask for at the beginning. That being said, once you are in coaching and you find the right coach and you see the benefits that coaching have that go well beyond problem solving and support people to live the way they want to live, a coach is incredibly valuable in that as well. And so I've had clients who've stayed with me years because they just find the value. They usually come to solve a problem, but they stay because of the nature of the relationship and how unique that is, that they don't usually have any other place in their life. A coach is probably one of the only people in their life that has no agenda other than the client's agenda. There's no expectations, and it's a safe place, and it's somebody who really understands them. So a lot of people stay for much longer because of that. But I would say a minimum of 6 months, preferably maybe even a year.
Thank you for sharing how long they should be expecting. I think the next question I really want to follow up with is, what is the best way for whoever is getting the coaching know that they're getting the results they're looking for?
I think in general, the results that come, the expectation should not be, I'm coming for procrastination. I want to leave with never procrastinating again in my life. That's not the goal. The goal is, do they understand how they operate? Are they starting to live in accordance with their unique brain wiring? Have they uncovered some of the things that they need in a given situation that may be different than what other people? Do they feel like they have more self-efficacy? Do they feel like they're more capable and agentic so that they can actually make a difference? And I think that is the true mark. And they procrastinate less, they focus better, they follow through more often, all of those things that they come for, but they are better and they have a better sense of their purpose and their passion and what they're here for. And most importantly, they are starting to recognize and use their strengths rather than just trying to remediate their weaknesses.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So how can people contact you?
So the best way to get a hold of me would be through my website. And I have two distinct avenues in my coaching. I coach adults with ADHD, and I coach the professionally creative actors, dancers, writers, filmmakers, things like that as well. And that's how I started my business. Interestingly enough, many of them end up having ADHD anyway, because it's really prevalent in the creative community because of a bunch of things. But you can get a hold of me through my website. You can get a hold of me through ADHDcoachNYC.com or coachingnyc.com.